Uh, Good morning, students. Today, we are going to start hoops and inheritance concepts. Okay, it's very important concepts. All of you must be attentive towards this class. Why? Because the actual Java programming is going to start from this concept. Okay, all of you must pay attention on this. Okay. Okay. Let us proceed to the contents. The contents, we first cover introduction and then how to define a class. That means here we will see how we are going to create a class. Okay, after that, how to create the corresponding object from it. Okay, and what are the things that you are supposed to follow while creating an object, and through that object how you are going to access the class members. Okay, and finally inheritance. All these concepts are going to be discussed today. Okay, so coming to the introduction, let us define a class. First of all, class is a structure of an object. I already told you the Java is purely object-oriented programming language. That means if you want to do any kind of requirement or if you want to satisfy any kind of operation through Java program, most of the programs are designed using objects. So before you are going to create an object, first of all, always you have to create a class first. Okay. Without a class, object doesn't exist. Okay. So this class will be look like a next version of C structures. I think most of you people already know what is a C structure, and most of you know how to create a C structure, and most of you know what are the things that are going to be contained in the C structure. So this class, along with this, along the variable declaration, you already know in the structure, the class will contain the variable declaration along with the operations. That is what we will call it as a methods. Okay. The difference between the C structures and the Java class is the C structures contains heterogeneous data types. That is, various types of variables will be there. Where in the class, along with those variables, the methods will also exist. The C structure is going to end with the semicolon, but the class doesn't have any kind of semicolon. Why? Because class will look like some block of statements. Okay. So after the closing brace, we cannot have any semicolon. Okay. So this class contains variables. That is what we'll call it as a parameters of an object. I already told you what are the things that will be considered for parameters of an object, like ID, name. All these things will be considered the parameters. And methods. Methods means functionalities. What are the various functionalities that you are supposed to do using an object that will be first mentioned in the corresponding class. Okay. And each and every method will have some signature. That signature should follow by all the programmers when you want to mention a particular method in the class. Okay, you will see what are those signatures in the later coming slides. Now let us see what is an object then. Here we have seen what is a class. Now we are going to see what is an object. Okay, and what is the difference between object and a class. Okay, every object you are seeing in the OOPS concept. Okay, every object will be considered as a blueprint of a class. Okay, so when you want to create an object, the class must exist for it. Without the existence of the class, I already told you, you cannot create an object. Okay, so why? Because the main operations, all the main operations will be performed only through objects. We cannot use classes directly to do any operation. Okay, whenever you want to make use of a class, you are supposed to create an object. That is the only thing that you have to do. Okay, we don't have any alternative. Okay, we cannot use classes directly. Now let us see one example of the object. Okay, for example, if I consider the person is a class. Okay, that class contains unique ID, that is like name, age, city, gender. These are the parameters what you are seeing in this red box, okay, red bordered box, can be considered as a data members, and the things what you are seeing in the blue bordered box, okay, will be considered as a methods. And this is called as a class, person class. This person class is applicable to a person whose name is John and the person whose name is Daisy. Okay, so here you are specifically saying he is the person whose name is John, whose age is 35 and he is living in the Delhi and his gender is male. And Daisy, whose age is 20 and living in the city called Pune and her gender is female. So here John and Daisy are called as the objects which are derived from this class called person. Are you following or not? Okay, name John and Daisy. Okay, these are the persons which will be considered as the objects. Okay, and these objects are derived from the class called person. Okay, you can derive any number of objects like this. You can create John, you can create Daisy, you can create Michael, you can create Mark, you can create Bob, like that. So many people you can derive from this class called person. And what are the specifications that you have mentioned in this class? Everything will be applied to that object what you are currently deriving. Okay. If you want to see one more example, for example, I can have a class called car whose parameters is year and making, company, and what is its model. Okay, this is the general representation of a car. From this car, I can derive Camry, Camaro, Benz, Caprice, Sonata, Maruti Suzuki, Audi, okay, Oaks. All these are the various types of cars that are derived from this general class called car. Here this car is called as a class, and here we have specifically saying that this is Sonata, this is Caprice, this is Benz. So here you are as specific to the car, then this specific car is called as an object. Okay, let us see some more examples. Okay, if I consider the scientist as a class, okay, then what are the corresponding objects then? Newton, Einstein, Kalam, C.V. Raman, all these are persons will come under the objects of the scientist class. Okay, so here what you can differentiate with the class and the object means, okay, class is a generalized one. Class is a generalized one where object is specific. If you want to recognize an object, it should have some identity. Class is a general representation entity. A general representation entity, and this is a specific representation entity. Okay. Similarly, river. River is a class where Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, Ganga, all these are all objects. Okay. Why? Because these are the persons who are derived from the class called scientists, and these are the what do you call, rivers which are derived from the class called river. Okay. Now let us see how to define a class. This is the general representation of a class, okay, which will be followed by this is modifier, data type, and field one. Modifier, data type, field. Like that, we can have any number of fields in the class. Similarly, here what we are mentioning is modifier, return type, and method name, which may have parameters. Similarly, modifier, return type, and method name too, which will have a parameters and a block of statements. So there is no restriction that you have to mention only these number of fields and you have to mention only these number of methods. There is no such restriction. Your class may have any number of fields and any number of methods. That depends upon the application requirement what you want to perform. Okay, and this is the sample class. Okay, this is a general creation of a class, and this is an example how to create a class. Let us consider a class called rectangle. Okay, I want to create a rectangle class whose parameters are length and width, and which may have the operations of area calculation and perimeter calculation. Okay, so this rectangle will have a dimensions called length and width, and we have area calculation and perimeter calculation as the operations. Does it have anything else for a rectangle? Yes, anybody? does it have anything? Does the rectangle will have anything apart from length, width, and uh, area calculation and perimeter calculation? This rectangle may have will have anything else?
So sir, honestly, Rosu 5 to 7 third years can exam పెడుతున్నారా? ఏం మీద?
Okay. Now let us see. Now let us see how to create an object. Now let us see how to create an object. Okay.
7 అయిపోద్దా? ఓకే, ఏం లేదు, ఇవాళ టాలెంట్ నెక్స్ట్ వాళ్ళందరితో క్విజ్ పెడదామని 7కి అయితే 7:30కి పెడతాను. సరే, రైట్.
Okay, so now let us see how to create an object. In the previous slide, we have seen how to create a class, and in this slide, let us learn how to create the corresponding object for it. Okay, this is how we create the object for the rectangle class we have created in the previous slide. Okay, here first we have to give rectangle, that is what we will call it as a class name, and this is what the name of object, which is also called as a reference to that object. Okay, name of the object, also called it as a reference of that particular object, or reference of the class reference, reference variable, class variable. These are all different types of names for this my rectangle. This is your wish. You can create your own name, no problem. Okay, you can give a simply R1, R2, my rect, like that. This is your wish. Later on is equal to new. New means it will dynamically create an object in the memory. That means it will allocate some block of memory for that class. Okay, that block of memory will contains the variables what they are supposed to mention and what the methods what they are supposed to implement. For all these kind of significances and specifications, a block of memory will be preserved using this keyword called new. And this rectangle is called as a constructor of that corresponding class. Creating the object is nothing but invoking the constructor. We will see about the constructor in the later slides. Okay. Here, using the constructor, we are going to create the object for it, and we are storing in the memory. We are preserving the memory for it. So this is the program how we are going to create object for the rectangle. Okay, this one is the class I have created. The continuation is this. Okay, so what it is doing actually, so it is creating the object, rectangle object called R1, and it is initializing the variable called length and width with 5 and 3 respectively, and with that variables called 5 and 3, area calc and perimeter calc has been called. So some of the people may get the doubt that, sir, what happens if I don't initialize these variables, if I directly call these methods? So if you won't initialize the variables like this, then by default those variables take to the value of 0. Without initializing the variables, if you're trying to perform the operations like area calculation and perimeter calculation, then you will get zeros. Here I am going to create another class, another object, rectangle object for rectangle class, which is called as an R2. This is another style of creation of object. This is what we are doing initially. Here we are creating the class variable or reference variable, and then we are attaching the object to it using this new rectangle scenario. After that, what I am doing is this R2 and R2 is initializing the length called 3, and R2 is initializing width 2, and corresponding area and perimeter calculations are going to be happening. For example, here you have initialized length and width for the rectangle object called R2, and if you still calling R1 dot area calc and R1 dot perimeter calc after this, then the corresponding areas and perimeters with the 5 and 3 will be calculated. Why? Because sometimes we may initialize with R2 as length and width as 3 and 2, but sometimes we may forget that here we we may mention R1 dot area calci and R1 dot perimeter calci, then it won't reflect the area and perimeter calculations of corresponding length 3 and 2. It reflects the area and perimeters of corresponding lengths 5 and 3 as the width. Are you following? This is what we'll call it as object independency. Why? Because if you do some modifications in one object of that class, that doesn't affect the another object of the same class. Okay. Are you clear about this? Okay. If you create a particular object with some particular specifications and you are doing so many modifications in that, that doesn't affect if you create another object for the same class. Okay, this is what we will call it as the object independency. Here in our Java, objects are purely independent. Okay. Now let us see the constructors here. So what are the specifications of constructors? So these are the specifications of the constructors. Okay. So actually, the constructor is also a method whose name is same as class. Whose name is same as the class, and shouldn't have a return type, even void. Okay, generally used for initializing parameters of the object. Okay, it will saves the time. It will create, if you create parameterized constructors. Okay, if you create parameterized constructors, what it will do is, along with the creation of the objects, the corresponding variables will be automatically initialized. So what you are doing here, it will save so much time for the initialization. That means you are not writing any separate instructions for the or separate methods for the initializing the variables. Okay. So some of you people may get a doubt that, sir, what happens if I give the return type to the constructor? First thing is, if you want to mention any constructor of a class for the class, the first rule is you have to give the constructor name as that is the method name, which is same as the class name. But you are not supposed to give any return type. So what happens if I give a return type? You should not give even void also. If I give either void, int, and float, then it will be no longer consider it as a constructor. It is also a method. It is also a method. You won't get any syntax errors. Okay, but that constructor, what you are mentioning the return type, that will be no longer call it as a constructor. It will be called as a method only. Okay. Now let us see a sample code of constructor. So this is the sample code. Okay. So here I have created a class test. Okay. Class test int x comma y public test. Here I am writing. This is what we call as a default constructor. Default constructor doesn't have any parameters. Okay. This is what we will call it as a parameterized constructor. Okay. This parameterized constructor will have some parameters. Okay. So here I can say you may find two constructors with the same name. Okay, two constructors with the same name. Here I have test with no parameters. Here I have the test with the parameters. Okay, so here I have two constructors but different signatures. If you observe, this test doesn't have parameters and this test having the parameters. So here the constructors are having the same name, but the signatures are different. So here I can call my constructor has been overloaded. My constructor has been overloaded. Okay, but there is a different requirement for each of the constructors. This constructor is called as a default constructor, and this constructor is called as a parameterized constructor. Okay, I think let us see some of the students may ask the doubts. Yeah. So two types of constructor, and each constructor has a different signature. Here I can call it as a constructor has been overloaded. So this default constructor simply display the message called constructor invoke. That's it. But is the parameter constructor, what it is doing, it is initializing the variables and it is giving the acknowledgement of the variables. You may deploy the code in the constructor also. You can deploy some operations inside the constructor also. They are not only meant for initialization, there is no restriction if you want to do some operations inside the constructor also. Okay, and here in the public static void, in the main class, if you see how we are going to create the objects. Actually, what we are doing here in the first instruction, if you observe here, test T1 is equal to new test. So what we are doing, we are creating the object called T1 by invoking the default constructor. That means this will be called. This constructor is going to be called, and the object is also created. And if you see the test T2 equal to new test of 3 comma 5, okay, so here we are creating the object with the help of a parameterized constructor. Okay, here the object will be created, and also initialization is also going to be happen automatically, and these are operations are also going to be performed parallelly. Okay, so here what we are achieving with this parameter constructor, we are creating the object, parallelly you are doing the operations. So you are saving lots of time and lots of code also. Okay, lots of instruction also. Now let us execute the code. Let us execute this code. Okay. Let us execute the code. Okay, let us write the code. Notepad constants. Now I want to create a class text. It has two variables called int x and y, but it has a first I'm creating a default constructor, the constructor which doesn't have any parameters, and I'll give a message, simply a message here. Okay, default constructor. Later on, I'll create another constructor called parameterized constructor, which will take the responsibility of initializing the variables using this keyword. I'll tell you about this keyword. No problem. This dot y is equal to y, and I want to check whether x is less than or equal. That means I am writing some instructions also, corresponding instructions also. This. If x is less than, I'll say that y is large. Else y is small or equal to x. So I have created my class called test here. Now what I'll do is I'll create the main class called constants, public static void main string as. If you when you are typing the code, always follow the indentation. If you follow the indentation, it will be clear to which block the corresponding instructions belongs to. Okay. Some people have the habit of writing continuously without maintaining this kind of indentation. If you follow the indentation, you will clearly understand the code. Okay. So here this is my code. Okay. Okay, let us execute this. I have passed x equal to 3 and y equal to 5. So you will have the message this default constructor as well as y is match. Why? Because you are calling the two constructors. You are creating the two objects at the same time. You are calling the two constructors. One is default constructor and another is the parameterized constructor. Here, let us see what is this. What is the significance of this keyword? Okay, actually, here I think all of you know when the method has been called, okay, then it is called as a called method, and when the same method has been implemented, then it is called as a calling method. Or else, let me more clear about this. I think some of you people already know. Most of you people know what are the actual arguments and what are the foreign arguments or foreign parameters. Here, here, if you observe in the what do you call parameterized constructor here this int-x and int-y are called as the foreign parameters. Why? Because these are the parameters that will initialized with which the variables has been called. Okay, these variables are called as the foreign parameters. If you observe, the name of the foreign parameters and local variables are same. Here, my intention is I want to initialize this x to this x, and I want to initialize this y to this y. If I write like this, x equal to x and y equal to y, for example. Here, as a programmer, you know, left hand side x is this x, and right hand side x is this x. At the same time, left y is this, and right y is this. As a programmer, you understand, but how your interpreter is going to understand? So definitely, your interpreter will get the definitely your interpreter is going to get some ambiguity. Okay, that is why instead of small s, I'll write this set. That means what? This corresponds to the current class variables or methods. Okay, here now it is clear. This dot x means this x only. The interpreter also clear about left hand side x and also right hand x. That is that is the advantage of this. For example, if I write x1, y1 instead of xy, then no need of using this. Why? Because here we have a clear differentiation. What is xy and what is x1, y1. Now you compare x1 and y1. Same out, right? Same out. When you are differentiating the local parameters with the foreign parameters, then differentiating foreign parameters with the local parameters, then there is no need of using this. Then there is no need of using this. Okay. Otherwise, you have to use this. Now let us go to the next slide. Yes, all of you clear about this up to the concepts what we have discussed so far? Yes, anybody has any doubt? Please acknowledge the chat. Any doubts? Okay, we'll proceed further. Okay. Now, how to create a method? Okay, this is how we create a method, general method. Okay. So what we are doing here is actually I want to I want to give a specific operation. Okay. So for that I want to create my own method. Okay. So here I am writing the public int max of int x comma int y. So here the public is called as a modifier. I'll tell you, I'll talk about these modifiers also later. Okay, here you may use either public, private, protected, or default. If you don't mention any specific modifier like public, private, or protected, then this modifier considered as a default modifier. Okay, some of you students may write the methods without having the modifiers also. They won't mention any of the words called public, private, or protected. Then such kind of methods called as the default methods. But there is no wrong in it, nothing wrong in it. Okay, you can do like that also. You can do like that also. If you won't mention any modifier, then it is considered as a default modifier. And this int is called as a return type. That means after evaluation or after doing some operations inside the method, what type of value?
Sir, your voice is low, sir.
Yeah. Is it clear, sir?
No, sir. No, sir. It's very low.
Is it clear, sir? Is it
Sir,
clear, sir?
now once remove the jack and just keep it.
Is it okay, sir? Hello?
Students need to tell. Ask one students.
Students, am I audible?
Now it is fine, sir.
Okay. Right. So here in this slide, you can able to see. Okay, this is how we are going to create the method. So this int is a return type. Okay, after doing some operations inside that method, finally, what kind of value it should return? Here we are comparing x with y. If you find that x is greater than y, you will return x. Otherwise, you will return y. Okay, you are returning x and y. So what is the type of x here? Int, right? So the method type should be int. Similarly, the name of the method and the parameters list. And this curly braces shows what are the instructions that are to be executed with that method, okay, which will be considered as a body of the method. Okay, let us create a small method before we are going to inheritance. Let us create the same method. So here I want, instead of parameterized constructor, I want to create a method, and I want to show how to invoke that method. Okay. So if you mention int means definitely that method should return some value or okay. So int ack is equal to 0. So what I'll write is if x is less than y, then what I'll write is ack is equal to x, else ack is equal to y, and I want to return ack. Okay. Now I don't have any parameterized constructor, so you better remove that. Now you call the method inside the print statement. Why? Because your method returning something, so you have to call that method in some print statement, or you can call that method by associating with a variable like that. Okay, now I want to find what is the maximum of 8 and 9. Okay, so now let us execute the code. So 8 is small. Actually, I have to give min here, mini. Okay, and I want to call it as a mini. Okay, so it returns a minimum value, right? Okay, so this is how we can create the method and you can invoke the method. Hi, all of you. So any doubts so far? Yes? Now we are moving on to the next concept, that is inheritance. So what do you mean by inheritance? Inheritance is the property, or it is a methodology in which acquiring of properties of one class by another class will happen. For example, father saying that son, I am base class, then son will say that dad, I am a derived class. Why? Because son will be derived from father, right? So when son is going to be derived from from father, so son may exhibit some similar properties of father, right? Like son eyes may look like his father, or son walking style may look like his father, or son writing style may look like his father. Apart from the parent class properties, the child class will also have its own unique properties. Okay. That means there is no such rule that uh, parent class and child class should have same number of properties. There is no such restriction. Okay, child class may have his own unique properties, apart from uh, parents' properties. Okay, fine. So the child class may preserve its own properties. So here, a mother have three children. Okay, two daughters and one son. Okay, so here if you see, actually mother's abilities is can cook, sing, dance, and teach. These are the mother abilities, and these are the children who are derived from this mother. Okay, one son and two daughters. The son abilities are how many here? 6. Okay, apart from 4 mother properties, son have 2 additional properties. Okay, similarly, the first daughter has 4 mother properties and 1 unique property. And second daughter has 4 mother properties and 2 unique properties. So here the properties what mentioned in the black color for each and every child is called as inherited skills. The properties which has been mentioned in the red color are called as the unique skills. Okay, and these skills may further extend to the children's. That means her grandchildren. Okay, so her grandchildren may get the properties directly from their children. Okay. So now we'll see what are the various types of inheritance. Okay, the first diagram, this will shows that it is called as a single inheritance. There is only one parent class and one child class, and this child is going to get the properties from this parent. This is happening only with the single classes, so it is called as a single inheritance. And here if you observe, we have 3 classes, class A, class B, class C. Class B is getting the properties from class A, and class C is getting the properties from class B. This is what we will call it as a multi-level inheritance. Class B will have the parent properties of class A, where class C will have the parent properties of both A and B. Just like you can see, like it is a grandparent, parent, and grandchildren relationship. So grandfather will give some properties to the father, and father will give some properties to the son. So son will contain the properties of both grandfather as well as father. This is what we will call it as a multi-level inheritance. And this is what we will call it as a multiple inheritance, where in this multiple inheritance, it has only single child, but 2 parents are giving the properties. Actually, this multiple inheritance is not supported in Java while considering classes into the consideration. It is possible with the interfaces, a different concept we will discuss later. Okay, this is how the multiple inheritance is going to happen. And this is what we will call it as a multi-path inheritance. This is what we will call it as a multi-path inheritance. Okay, that means class A will give the property to the class B, and class B will get the class D. Class B will give the properties to the class D. At the same time, class D will also get the directly properties from class A. That means class D can get the properties in two ways. One is from class B as well as from class A directly. Similarly, from class C, also from class A directly. So the class D have various types of acquiring, has various ways of acquiring the parent properties. So this type of inheritance is called as a multi-path inheritance. And this is what we will call it as a hierarchical inheritance. That means the hierarchical inheritance generally represents a family tree. Okay. For example, think that this class A is your grandfather, and the grandfather has two sons. Okay, class C and class B, and class C has another two sons, a son or daughter, class D, class C, and the second son also have the two children, class F and class D. Okay, so this class D and class C have the properties of both class A and class C, and the class F, class D has the properties of both class A and class B. So this is what we call as hierarchical inheritance, and this is the hybrid inheritance. Hybrid inheritance is nothing but it is a combination of all above mentioned inheritances. It may involve single inheritance, it may involve hierarchical inheritance, and it may give what do you call various combinations of it. All these will come under hierarchical. All these are called as a hybrid inheritance. So according to the code, if you consider, okay, if you consider the coding wise, okay, how the single inheritance is represented using the code. Okay, how the single inheritance is represented with the code. Okay, here the class A is parent, and class B is child. So class B can get the properties of parent class A using the extends keyword. Okay, generally extends keyword is used between the two classes if they want to perform some inheritance, single level inheritance. Here it is what multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance means, so don't bother about the arrows. They should actually represent from top to bottom. Okay, don't care about the arrows. Okay, here think only the which have been written on upper side, think them as a parent. Who are written in the bottom, they are the child classes. So in the class, if you observe in multi-level inheritance, here we have class A, that class A will give the properties to class B, and class B will give the properties to the class C, such that the class C will contain the properties of both A and B. Similarly, hierarchical inheritance and also multiple inheritance. The coding will, the codes will be written like this for each and every type of inheritance. As I mentioned earlier, Java doesn't support multiple inheritance in case of classes. This multiple inheritance can be implemented only using interfaces. That we'll discuss later. Let us see sample inheritance code. Okay. For example, I have a class called parent having two specifications, that is one variable which is initialized with 9, and the method called display saying that I am a parent. Okay, so now if you here if you call for example, here we have created a class called child which will extend the parent class, but here I am not giving the display method, here I am giving the printer method. Okay, so this printer method is not the method of the parent class. Printer method is a unique property of the child class, but this display method is also presented in the child class implicitly. That method may not be visible inside the child class, but when you write this keyword called extends, this method will automatically comes to this child class. It may not be visible, but it is presented implicitly. So if you want to confirm that, here I am creating the child class objects and I am calling the both display method as well as printer method. Display method as well as printer method. Actually, you cannot find display method explicitly in this code, okay, but it is present as it is acquiring the property from the parent class. Okay. Now let us see the execution of this. What is the name of the class? INH demo. Okay. Okay. This is the code I have mentioned earlier. Okay. So here the display method may not be presented, they may not be visible explicitly, but it is present because of extends parent. This method will be automatically comes to your child. So that's why I'm calling both display method as well as printer method using this child object. Okay. Now let us execute the code. Okay. Hi, I am parent and hi, I am child. So hi, I am parent mean it is a method display method which is called by child class only, as you are not writing that code explicitly in the child class. So it gives the parent definition by default. Okay, but this hi, I am child is the display message that has been displayed with the help of printer method. Okay, so give me 2 minutes time. Okay, okay, understood. Now let us move on to the next slide. Now let us see super keyword. What do you mean by super keyword? Super keyword generally used to invoke the superclass constructor by child class. Okay, that means no need of separate creation of the parent class constructor in the child class. Okay, if you simply write super, it will automatically call the superclass constructor. So here, if you see, for example, here the class called father, whose bank balance is 5 lakhs here. Here, the daughter wants to access his father's bank balance. Okay, if the daughter wants to take the father's bank balance, then you can simply say that super dot bank balance. This super dot bank balance will represent this 5 lakhs. If you are not using the super, if you simply use only bank balance, then it will display 3 lakhs. Okay, so daughter has her own bank balance, and father has his own bank balance. But here, daughter is trying to access the father's bank balance using super keyword. Similarly, using this super, you can call methods also. You can call the constructor like this. For example, here I have a class called staff. Okay, here I have a class called staff. Okay, in this, staff has some what do you call specifications like string ID and name and float salary, and the constructor which will initialize this ID, name, and salaries. Now, employee is going to call its superclass constructor. Okay, so employee has a string ID, name, and salary. So here employee is not interested to initialize the variables inside his class. He wants to use the staff class. He wants to use the staff class, which is his parent. Okay, here employee is directly giving the responsibility of initializing the variables by his parent. Employee is not at all interested to initialize variables by his own. That's why he is calling the superclass constructor. The superclass constructor will do the initialization. Why? Because these variables are readily available in this employee. Why? Because you are using this keyword called extends. Then it will do the specific operations with the values what the employee class got. Okay. Now let us see a sample code. Let us see the code. Okay. Notepad emp demo dot. So here I want to create a class called staff, where it has a string name ID, name and ID, and it has a float salary that is 0.00. Now it writes the constructor, okay, which has the parameter string name and string ID along with the float salary that will be initialized with this keyword. Why? Because the foreign parameters and the local parameters are same. So this dot name, this dot ID equal to ID, and this dot sal is equal to sal. Now I will create a class called employee, which will extend the properties from staff. Here also the constructor will be there for the employee. Okay. So instead of writing this initialization instructions, it will simply calls its superclass constructor. That's it. So the child class not at all interested to do the initialization. It is handovering the responsibility to its parent. So public void display. So what it will check is if the salary is greater than 50,000 or 5,000, then only it will display ID, ID and the name. Else it prints nothing. System.out.println, no employee. So to invoke all these things, let us create a main method. See, I already told you, if your program having multiple classes, the name of the program should be name of the main class. Okay. Your program may contain any number of classes, but name of the program must be name of the main class. So public static void main string args. So now I want to create the object employee equal to new employee whose name is ABC and whose ID is 123 and the salary is 5,450.23 F. And I want to invoke display method using eObject. Similarly, I want to create another object, employee object, whose name is F and whose reference value is F and the name is XYZ and 456, and this time it is only 2,250. Here I want to call f.display. So now let us execute the code. Return type is required. Public staff. Sorry. This is public employee, right? Yeah. Now it is Java EMP10. So the employee with ID 123 having the more than 5,000 salary, so it is reprinting its name. And the second employee salary is less than 5,000. That's why it is printing no employee, as per the code what we have written here. Okay, so that is how we can implement an inheritance code. Yes, all of you clear about this? Any doubts? Yes, let us move on to the next slide. Please acknowledge the chat. Okay. Now let us see runtime polymorphism here. Yeah, sure. This is the output. Okay. So in the first class, in the first employee, for first employee, the salary is more than 5,000. That's why it is printing the details. But for the second employee, the salary is less than 5,000. That's why it is not displaying the employee details. Okay. Is it clear, Raviteja, Nagavarapu? Okay. So now let us see the runtime polymorphism. What is runtime polymorphism? Actually, simply I can say that runtime polymorphism is nothing but calling the child class constructor, with the parent class reference. Or else I can say that the reference is parent reference, but the object associated is child class object. Okay. But here, when you type this code in IDEs, IDE is by default pre-compiled. Okay. So that is why when you type this code and if you click on this walk, okay, at compile time it refers to the child class walk, parent class walk, but at the time of execution it executes child class object, child class walk. The thing is actually here, the thing is here, what we are doing in this class called person, we have method called walk method. Am I right? Here also in the employee, which is extending the person, is also having the walk method. Here, this what we are doing is, we are changing the definition of parent class method in the child class. Am I right? Why? Because if you observe in the person walk, it is mentioned like running slow, but in employee walk, it is mentioned as running fast. So that is what the meaning. Employee is acquiring the walk method from the parent, but what it is doing, it is changing the definition. It is changing the definition. This concept, we will call it as a method overriding concept. Methods with the same names and same signatures, but different definitions. That different definition has been assigned by the child class. This concept, we will call it as a method overriding. Okay, here in the main method, if you observe, we have person P equal to new employee. That means what? I'm creating the parent class reference, but the object is child class. So when the compile time, if you want to refer this walk, it refers to the person's walk, but it executes child walk. Means what? This resolution is going to be taken place at the time of execution or at the time of runtime. That is why it is called as the runtime polymorphism. Okay, so method resolution is going to be happen at the execution time rather than compile time. The method resolution is happening at runtime. That is why it is called as a runtime polymorphism. Clear, all of you? Let us move on to the next concept, that is static keyword. So static keyword means the static block always, for example, the static keyword can be applied to any method, any variable, or we can directly create any static block directly. But what is the advantage of static block means? These static blocks are readily available in the memory, but it is also before the availability of main. Okay, static block executes before main method. That means what? The static block will be loaded first rather than main method. That's why the main method is also called as a, that's why the main method is also mentioned along with the static keyword. Why? Because it is a public static void main. Okay. So for this static members, no need to create the object. That is the first thing. These members, these static members are also called as the class members. Okay. And the variables inside the static block or method must be static. That means if you want to use any variables inside a static methods, those variables must also be declared as static before the usage inside a particular method. అంటే మీరు ఏదైనా ఒక స్టాటిక్ మెథడ్లో ఏదైనా వేరియబుల్ యూజ్ చేద్దాం అనుకుంటే కనుక ఆ వేరియబుల్ కూడా స్టాటిక్ అయి తీరాలి. దట్ షుడ్ బి డిక్లేర్డ్ అలాంగ్ విత్ స్టాటిక్ కీవర్డ్. So changing the static variable of a class affects all the objects of that class. Okay. And one more thing here you have to observe, we have two types of members in the Java classes. That is, one is called as the instance members, another one is the static members. Instance members are independent members and static members are dependent members. Why I am saying this is, if you modify any variable, if you modify any value in a static variable, that will be affected to all the objects of that class. Why? Because it is a static variable. Okay. If it is an instance variable, it is an instance variable. If you try to change that instance variable, that affect only within that particular instance or within the particular object. ఏదైనా ఒక ఆబ్జెక్ట్ వేరియబుల్ మీరు మాడిఫై చేస్తే ఆ మోడిఫికేషన్ ఆ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ వరకే ఉంటుంది, ఆబ్జెక్ట్ నుంచి బయటకు రాదు. అదే మీరు స్టాటిక్ వేరియబుల్ని మాడిఫై చేశారనుకోండి, ఆ చేంజ్ మిగతా అన్ని ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ని ఎఫెక్ట్ చేస్తుంది. సింపుల్గా చెప్పాలంటే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ టుడే ఈజ్ మై బర్త్డే, నాట్ రియల్లీ, జస్ట్ అస్యూమ్ టుడే ఈజ్ మై బర్త్డే. I want to call some guests to my guests, especially students. Okay, I want to call 20 students, for example. I want to call 20 students to my class, to my birthday party, and I will start cake cutting. So here, in instance member, if the cake is an instance variable, what I will do is I'll divide my cake into 20 equal parts. As I have invited 20 guests, I will cut my cake into 20 equal parts, and I'll give identification for each and every cake piece. That means I will write my student roll numbers on those cake piece. అంటే దాని అర్థం ఏంటి? ఆ కేక్ పీస్ మీద ఉన్న రోల్ నెంబర్ ఉన్న స్టూడెంట్ ఆ పీస్ తీసుకోవాలి, ఇంకెవరు తీసుకోకూడదు. then what happens is it will be equally distributed to all the students. Why? Because one cake piece doesn't affect the other cake piece. Why? Because each and every cake piece has been already allocated to each and every object. Okay, that is only for that particular object, and no other object going to access that. Why? Because I have given already restriction, only that roll number should take this cake piece. But in the other case, if you consider, I'll keep only that cake. By this time, I won't cut that cake and I won't mention any roll numbers on it. I'll tell my all my 20 students, student, take this cake. That's it. So what they will do? What they will do? They will divide the cake evenly. Is there a chance? Of course, if they have understand, they will divide evenly. But if there is no understanding between them, the cake will not be divided evenly. Okay, only one student may eat all the cake, so that for the remaining student the cake will not be available. Okay, that means because of one student, the remaining students are also affected. That is what static. That is what the static scenario. Okay, this is the example code for the static code, static variables. So here I have mentioned variable called x, which is a static int. Okay, whenever you create the object, the variable is going to create the object. For the first variable s1, if you perform the display method, it prints 101. And if you perform the display method for s2, what is the value it will print? Anybody, please acknowledge through chat. For s1, when it performs display method, it prints 101. For s2, the display method prints the value of x. What it is? For s1, the value of x is printed as 101. For s2, what is the value of x? Anybody? 102. Very good. Okay, why? Because here the x is a static variable. It is not instance variable. Can anybody tell me, instead of a static, if I mention only int x, what is the value for s1 and s2? For s2 also, just like s1 is equal to, s2 is equal to, mention like that. So now you may understand what's the difference between static members and instance members. Okay. Thank you. So any doubts you may ask, otherwise we'll proceed to the poll questions now. Girish sir? Hello? Hello? Girish sir? Okay, anybody, all of you clear? All of you clear about this? Any doubts? Sir, are they poll questions? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Okay. Yes, all of you students, be ready for poll questions. Without answering, don't go out of the meeting. Yes, all of you start answering. సిస్టమ్ ఇన్హెరిటెన్స్ మీద అయిపోయి కొలాబరేటర్లో గిరీష్ సార్ పేరు సార్ కండక్ట్ చేశారు.
You need to clear the annotations. At top in the options, it will be there. Yes. There, zoom only, zoom. You can disable the annotations also. Last 1 minute, only 74 submitted. Can I end the poll? I hope only these people are active now. I will stop this poll in 40 seconds. There are 20 more people need to submit. Sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can discuss.
Yeah.
Sir, are you able to see the result?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine.
Yes, sir. So for the first question, as I already told you, the static block is going to be executed first. Okay, that is why the message will be printed as inside static block, inside main class. Okay, static block will be executed first, and then main method is going to be executed first. So 49% of people have given the correct answer. And which of the following are the examples of classes? Okay, so here I have mentioned director name, and then hero, and then Godavari, and then city. So here the correct answers are hero and city. Why? Because hero and city are generic in nature, where James Cameron and Godavari are in specific in the nature. I already told you classes are generic in nature. Okay, that's why hero and city are the correct answers. And which of the following inheritance not possible for Java classes? I already mentioned the multiple inheritance is not possible for Java classes. Okay, for that we have to use interfaces that will be covered later on. And runtime polymorphism is nothing but child object and parent reference. Just now we have executed the code. The resolution is going to be taken place at the time of runtime, executing the code. Okay, so it is parent reference and child object is the correct answer. 52% has people has given me the correct answer. And super keyword denotes superclass constructor only, not superclass object. Okay, superclass constructor only. Okay, so that constructor only, you can access the variables or methods, all the things. Okay. Yes, sir. Girish sir, the session is over, sir.